Hi there, this is Andrew Brody with Yokogawa, and today I'd like to talk to you about Infowell. Infowell is an application portfolio that can run on top of the Stardom series of controllers. Infowell gives you the capability of doing custom web pages, data logging, sequence of event logging, message logging, email, and today I'm going to focus on the data logging aspect of it. So Infowell is an option, and on the FCN and FCJ units, it's a license that can be purchased and installed on the system cards. For the FCN RTU, you need to purchase a model of the FCN RTU that already has Infowell baked into its firmware. So FCN RTU must be ordered with it, but the FCN and FCJ can be added later. The only thing that I'll mention here is that with the FCN, Infowell relies on Java to implement much of its capabilities, and because of that, Java is incompatible with redundant CPU capability of the FCN. So what else do you need on top of the license or the option on the FCN RTU? You need the NT205AJ, and essentially that's the application portfolio DVD. And this is kind of what it looks like. Once you get the DVD, you're going to want to run the setup. Once you run the setup, you're going to get a page that kind of looks something like this. And you're going to want to go ahead and hit all your installs here under Infowell. So install, install, install. And then you're going to want to go ahead and read the logging document. This is going to be your best friend when it comes to setting up data logging on the Stardom unit. And this is the document right here, Infowell Logging Portfolio Instruction Manual. So it's IM34P02P53-01E. This covers everything you're going to need to know. I just kind of read it from top to bottom. It covers stuff like opening up your firewall to allow some of the applications to pass data back and forth. It goes into every little feature that you could ever imagine. It's a pretty good document. What I'm going to do in the video here is I'm essentially going to give you the reduced version of the document in video format. So what do you need to do to actually get this up and running? Well, the first thing you need to do is make sure you have an IP address in your Stardom unit. So you need to make sure you have Resource Configurator installed. We have a different video on setting up the IP address, but essentially you'll go to Resource Configurator, IP address, make sure you got Stardom attached on your network. Go ahead, do this, put in an IP address, and then you're going to establish a connection to it. Default username is Stardom, all lowercase. Default password is Yokogawa, all uppercase. Go ahead, connect, and I'll kind of show you right here. Use Java program. You got to make sure that that's checked. If it isn't checked, make sure it's checked, and go ahead and download it to your controller. And that's really all you need to do in Resource Configurator at this point. Okay. The next thing you're going to need to do is you're going to make sure that you install the actual application portfolio onto the RTU or the FCJ or FCN. And if you did a default install of Infowell, you should get a directory called Yokogawa Infowell Setup. Underneath that, you'll see FCX Setup. When you run this, it's going to ask for the IP address of the controller you wish to set up. Once you do that, it's going to go ahead and put all the application portfolio onto your system card or your FCN RTU. Once that's been successfully done, you should be able to go to a web browser and type in the IP address. It may ask for a user ID and password. Once again, it's lowercase Stardom for the user ID and all uppercase Yokogawa for the password. You should see this APPF folder. If you get that, then the install went properly. You're going to see a couple directories under there. The key ones are DLG and Infowell. If I pick Infowell Info, this is going to be how much memory you have available on your unit, as well as if you already had data logging like I have set up, it's going to show how much has been allocated to it. But here's kind of how much memory up here you've got free for doing stuff like data logging. All right, so let's go back. Next place you're going to want to go is DLG, and I got two directories that are of interest to you. One is config, the other is HMI. Config is for setting up your data logging. HMI is for essentially viewing your data files as well as controlling the data logging. So let's go to config here and kind of take a look at the system here. So first place I'm going to do is I'm going to do a check, start, and if I have any data logging set up, it's going to kind of tell me how many different sets I've got, how many variables I'm looking at, what their data rates are. And the first thing I see here is I've got a couple set up, and that I've got some set up for a new data file every hour, and it looks like it's logging the data every minute. And that's our considered low speed data logging. For high speed data logging, looks like I've got a couple variables set up every hour, once a second. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. Let's take a look at some of the things that might be useful here. So log setting, I do a read on this. I might have to read a couple times, it just depends. Basically, if I'm doing high-speed data logging, this may not be as responsive, but it kind of sees that I have 87 megs available for data logging, and I can kind of set how much space I want to reserve for the actual data logging. So I set 45 here, and then this is kind of just showing me some statistics on my actual data logging. So once I've kind of done that, I can hit apply, and then if I want to set up my message file limit, I can go anywhere from 0.1 to 2 megabytes for my message file. Apply, OK. If I want to set up email, I can go ahead and set up email here. I can do groups, lists. Here's where I can add in accounts. Different types of authentication, or POP3 before SMTP authentication. That'll open up stuff like user IDs and passwords, okay? So if you want to set up email, that's what you can do to go ahead and get data logs emailed to you. All right, under data here, if I right click and go new, this is going to allow me to set up my data logs. So first one I'm going to show you is low speed data logging. Okay, so I've already set this one up here. And the key things that you're going to want is this little checkbox here, auto start if stop. So essentially once you get that is when you download this, it's going to go ahead and start the data logging if it happened to be stopped. So it's going to make sure you're actually data logging if you have that checked. Okay. The other thing is you're going to want to give it a name. You're going to want to give it a title. And these are flexible to your needs. The actual menu tells you what your limits are in terms of the data length for these. And then different types of data logging like hourly, daily. You can do batches. You can do snapshots. Once you get into batches and snapshots, you can invoke triggers, and these can be variables that can do some triggers like up here. All right, and then here's your data acquisition, two different types, high and low speed. Low is essentially a minute or slower, high is a second to 60 seconds. And then here's your period, so low is 1 to 60 minutes and high is 1 to 60 seconds. Closing time, this is when it's going to close out the data log, so it's going to be 10 minutes past the hour. So 12:10, 1:10, 2:10, 3:10, okay? If you want to include some reports, you can go ahead and do that, daily, daily, monthly, monthly, yearly, stuff like that. If you want to have some emails, make sure you have your email set up, and then you can go ahead and send it out to a group. If you want to get triggers for stuff like batches and so on, you can go here and hit vars, okay? Now this assumes that you've already gone into Logic Designer and set up all the programs and variables you're going to want to run. So make sure you've kind of done your control program first. You've gone ahead and set up all your variables. Once you do, then you should be able to go ahead and get this. Okay, make sure you've set up your programs, you've downloaded it to your Stardom unit, you've set it to run, stuff like that, and then all this should become available to you. Same goes for this page. This is where you actually take whatever is in here, drag and drop it, and place it in here. And that's kind of how you add your variables to logging. So once you do that, I've added a couple here. I've drug over kind of main sign 2. You'll be able to put in an engineering variable. Okay, degree. You'll be able to give them a label. This is what they're going to show up as in the data log. Say you had a binary file, a binary data type, you could give on and off labels for them. And the other thing you can set is decimal or significant digits. This is essentially how many characters of each data item you're going to go ahead and log. So you can pick, I want 4 decimal places, or you can say how many significant digits. It's either or, you can't kind of set both. And then closing, you can say if you want a total of all of them, no total. And then same, you can do a report. Okay, average, minimum, maximum, those are some of the things you can kind of do as a basic report on it. Let's see, one more thing. On logging variables, you can have up to 40 of these in a particular data file. So you can add in 40 variables here. Header, this is kind of just some little information you can put at the top of each data file. And you can once again bring variables in, put labels. You can have up to 10 of these, so it's not kind of data logging every second or every minute. This is more just some header information at the top. So I'd primarily see this like, say, batch numbers, information that's pretty much static for that data log. And you can have up to 10 of those in there. Okay, so this is kind of the low-speed data logging setup here. So once everything's done, you hit apply, OK, and you can exit out. Let me show you high-speed data logging, and there's some tricks to high-speed data logging. So once again, all this is pretty much the same. We've already seen this all before. Logging variables. Now this is where everything changes a little bit. To do high speed, you got to do a little work in Logic Designer. So let me kind of show you this. Okay, so here's my Logic Designer program. First thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to go up here and go Libraries, Insert, User Library, and you're going to want to make sure you install the data logging library, and that's right there. Make sure this guy's installed. I've already gone ahead and installed it. You can see it over here. Okay, that was part of your DVD install. It said POUs. These are the POUs it installed for the high-speed data logging. Once you've done that, the next thing you're going to want to do is go down to your task here, and you're going to want to go ahead and insert a program instance. You're going to insert a program instance of this type, okay? And you're going to name it the exact same. So SD_DLG_HS_admin. And then you're going to go ahead, hit OK, and put it in. So you can see I've already done that here. The only trick with this is under your task cyclic settings. See how it's running 100 milliseconds for my tasks? You got to make sure that this is at least some factor. It's got to be evenly divisible into whatever rate you're data logging. So in this case, I'm scanning 100 milliseconds, which is fine, because this is kind of like my trigger for should I data log or not. And you want it to be as fast or faster than whatever you're trying to do a data log at. So in this case, we're doing high-speed data logging at 1 second. So the next thing you need to do is you're going to need to go to one of your programs, and you're going to need to insert some function blocks for the high-speed data logging. And the library that you're going to want is right here, SDDLG PF. Okay, and you can see I've got kind of these high-speed data repositories for each different type. So here's my high-speed data logging, here's my sequence of events. So literally drag and drop over here. In this case, I dragged and dropped the real one over. Okay? And then the only other thing that you really is mandatory is you've got to attach a variable of the same type. So since this is a real, I attach sign, which is a real variable. Since this is a real here, I attached counter, which is also a real variable. The only other thing that you might want to do is if you're kind of doing a batch-based data logging, you're going to want to make sure your batch trigger is attached to this item here. Once all that's done, you're going to want to do a make. You're going to want to go ahead and do a download your changes to make sure all that's there. And then that should essentially cover you for your high-speed data logging. So any variables you want to do high-speed data logging on, you make sure you got them attached to the appropriate POU. And what you're going to see is, here's the name of the first POU, that's the second. These are going to become available inside your data logging configuration system. Okay, so if you don't like the default names, make sure you rename them so that they kind of make sense to you when you get back here, okay? Because when I go vars, anyone that was in a high speed is going to kind of show up here. So in this case, it wasn't showing sign, wasn't showing counter, it was just showing the default names. But I went ahead and renamed my label to account for that. All right, so just be aware of that. Now, if you went ahead and made some changes to Logic Designer and re-downloaded your program, but you already had your web page up or you already had this up, you may need to kind of exit out of it and then come back into it to make sure it gets a refresh set of what variables are available for you. Okay, so once everything's done here, apply, okay. Then the last thing you're going to want to do once that's all set up is you're going to want to go ahead and download that to the controller. That's going to go ahead, send it on down to the controller and get it running. Once that's done, you're going to want to go ahead and go to this page here. So I've got it done here, but it's appf dlg hmi, and then you're going to type in control.htm. It's not completely browsable. This is more kind of like special for administrators. This here is going to kind of show you what's running in terms of your data logs and give you the choice to stop. If you add triggers, it's going to show up the state of your trigger over here. If you need to, you can do a refresh, stop all, start all. So this is just an important page for you to be aware of as well. Okay, beyond that, what kind of neat things can we do? Under Infowell here, Logging Portfolio, we've got a few things. We got Logging Configurator. This is essentially a PC version of the web-based logging configurator that we've seen actually running off the Stardom unit. So this is just a Windows application you can go ahead and run, and this will allow you to do configuration from your PC instead of a web page. The other thing we're going to see is Logging File Collector. This can be set up to automatically go in and retrieve the data files from the Stardom unit. So I've already got that running here. Let me show you what it looks like. By right-clicking on it, Operation Log, that'll kind of tell you kind of like background on how it's been operating. Settings, this is where you're going to want to go ahead and add in the units that you want to go ahead and get the information from. So you're going to put in your IP address, username, and password. You're going to want to give it a directory where to dump the data files. You're going to say how often you want to go in, so 10th minute of every hour, once an hour, or you can kind of put days in there as well. The other thing that's available for you here, and you get this by right-clicking on it, is you can go manual collection, and that'll just go out and get whatever data files are currently on it. If you don't want to go that route, I'll show you another way to get to it. You can go up here and type in FTP and this will take you right out to the unit. It may ask you for a user ID and password. Once again, user ID lowercase Stardom, and then password is uppercase Yokogawa. You can go to users, you can go appf, you can go DLG, you can go data, and this is where all the data logs are stored. So here's my low speed data log files, so I can go ahead, grab those. I can literally kind of drag and drop those to my desktop if I want. If I want to do some house cleaning, I can go in here and delete those files. Same thing, here's my high speed data files, they're right here. I can drag and drop them, I can delete them. So this is kind of just a nice housekeeping way that you can work with Stardom. Okay, beyond that, FCN Infowell right here, Logging Portfolio, Logging Viewer. You can go ahead and activate this. And the only thing it really needs set up is data folder. Select data folder. Remember how we set up the logging file collector, or just a general place where we're going to put our data files? So if we have the logging file collector, the data folder it's looking for is this guy here, wherever I told the logging file collector to drop its data. Okay? And you can have multiple Stardom units underneath it. Once this guy is set to that kind of data log folder, it's going to go under there and look at all the IP addresses, all the different Stardom units, and it's going to allow you to kind of be able to browse into it. And you can kind of see, here's all my different data files. I can go ahead, look at them in table format. I can look at them in trend format. I can turn various different ones on, off. Okay, I can change colors, like background, like that. Okay. I can go to my high-speed data logging. There we go. You can kind of see that nice sine wave because it's collecting at a lot higher speed. Okay, so that's your trend window there. Okay, so that pretty much covers you for data logging, both high speed and low speed, on the Infowell system. So this is Andrew Brody with Yokogawa, and thanks for listening. Have a great day.